The Iron Claw stars Zac Efron and was directed by Sean Durkin. It follows the story of the Von Erich wrestling family and their supposed family curse. And it mostly follows Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich. He has a couple brothers. Some tragedy besets the family.
Yes.
It's a fascinating movie. They're a famous wrestling family, probably one of the most famous wrestling families of all time.
From Texas, where we're from.
From Texas, from Denton, Texas, which we both frequented before.
Yes.
Braden, what'd you think of The Iron Claw?
I loved Iron Claw. I thought it was like so fucking depressing.
Yeah.
But, like in the best possible way. It broke me down. I texted you right after I saw the movie and I said, bring tissues because Jesus Christ. I didn't know anything about wrestling, just in general, but like a lot of shit happens to this family. To the point where I was almost like, is this real? Like, you know, you ask yourself that, like, if it wasn't real and this was just the plot of a movie, I'd be like, they're doing too much.
There's
like,
no way this much bad shit happens
exactly.
to them. Yeah.
But it does.
Yeah.
This movie was like the giving tree of pain.
Yeah. I actually had, like, from my grandpa, an autograph from one of the Von Erichs who was still living.
Whoa.
And I didn't know what it was, and I threw it away.
That's crazy.
And they're worth like $2,000, like $3,000.
They're definitely going to shoot up after this movie.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping that maybe there was just another one stashed away somewhere.
Do you know which one you had?
I think it was Kevin. I mean, I can't guarantee, but I think it might have been like the last living one.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so...
I can't believe you got Zac Efron's signature.
I know, right? Anyways, that's not really related to the movie. I just thought I'd mention a little fun connection.
What did you think of the movie?
I enjoyed the movie a lot. I'd been excited for it since I'd been seeing the trailer. I like the concept. There's a line you hear a lot in the trailer. You know, our family's cursed. Mom tried to protect us with God. Dad tried to protect us with wrestling. It's a very like macho, not necessarily macho movie. It's
masculine.
It's a movie about toxic masculinity in a way. One of the Letterboxd reviews I really enjoyed said, "Isn't it crazy when your family curses just how shitty your dad is?" Because there is a pretty shitty father in this movie.
Indeed, there is.
I also have just been excited to see Jeremy Allen White in a bigger role. I knew him from Shameless. I hadn't seen The Bear, but I know that that's what he'd been popping off for.
I've seen season 1 of The Bear, and I've been really liking it.
So this movie's about relationships, particularly the brotherly relationships. Let's talk about each of the brothers and sort of how they're connected to each other.
Right.
So you got Kevin Von Erich,
Yes.
who he's technically the eldest of the family, even though at some point in the movie he explains that they did have a brother who had died as a child. Do you know how that kid died, apparently? They don't explain it in the movie, but do you know what happened to him in real life?
No, yeah, they're really vague about it in the movie.
I think he, like, fell in a puddle and drowned.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
He's like 5.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. That's sad.
Yeah, but anyway, so you have Zac Efron, who's kind of got this oldest brother syndrome. You know, he wants to make his, you know, dad proud, who's got like an insane standard. The dad is also very open, telling the brothers that, you know, I have favorites and y'all are ranked, but the rankings always change.
Right.
So immediately there's like this intense competition from birth.
Right. And not just competition, though, because he's also bearing like the entire emotional weight. Like he's honestly being the parent for all of these brothers, because you even see in the beginning of the movie, like, he goes up to his mom and like is like, hey, just like watch out for my brother for me. And she's like, that's a job for your father. And then whenever he talks to his father's just like, wrestling.
Yeah.
So like immediately you see that Kevin has like more responsibility than he could like possibly handle at the age he's at.
So you also have David, who is, I think he's the next oldest brother. He's where Kevin lacks in like public speaking and like the showmanship of the wrestling.
Right. He's the likable one.
He picks up. Yeah. Carrie, he's, you know, more of an Olympian. He's an athlete in a different way, you know. There's this one very kind of interesting part of the movie where Fritz, the father, is like, yeah, I didn't want any of y'all to go wrestling just because, you know, I want y'all to pick different career fields, even though he definitely wants them all to be wrestlers. Yeah. But it just goes to show that, you know, he was happy with them as long as they were pursuing something athletic.
Right.
Unlike the other brother, Michael, who's kind of
the black sheep, I guess.
He's the runt of the litter.
Yeah.
But he's gifted musically, and he's just, you know, he's the awkward one. They even try and get him in the ring at one point.
Right, yeah. But you can tell he's got, like, a good heart. And, like, he's the awkward one, but you can tell the brothers still, like, love him. Like, he's sort of chastised by, like, his dad, because his dad's like, oh, there's no money in music. And, like, you can tell his mom doesn't want, like, there's that scene where she doesn't want him going out or anything like that. She's a little protective of him. But you can tell the brothers really, like, love him and respect him and treat him like one of them, obviously. Like, he's not a black sheep in the sense of, like, no one likes him in the family at all. We should probably talk about one of the omissions in this movie. I don't know if you know about this.
I think I do.
Chris von Erichsen?
Yes, there was another Von Erich.
Yes.
It was cut out of the movie.
Yes. They cut him for time, I guess, to keep the story more concise, which is crazy. You know, it's weird because on the one hand, I do respect it by the director because there is a lot that happens in this movie, and you kind of have to, like, eventually at a certain point, we stop having funerals for these kids. Because we're cutting for time. You know, there's too many. So I can completely understand why he did it. And I honestly probably does make the movie better. I do feel a little lied to, though, that he's just not represented in any capacity.
Yeah.
Apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you know anything about him, but he died around the same time that Mike died. Like, from what I understand, he died as, like, a result, basically, of Mike committing suicide. Is that correct? From what you've heard?
I don't know. I just knew that he was cut out of the movie. And again, I get cutting it for time because I think after a while, I mean, I know we're talking about spoilers, after these characters commit suicide, it's like another one, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the real story. Of course. So why would you keep that out of it? I mean, I don't know if they were just worried it would pull the emotional weight out of seeing like some individual ones die, like particularly Carrie towards the end with like his form of suicide. But
yes, and I think Mike too, because if what I'm saying is true, if what I'm remembering, what I've researched is true, then he dies at literally the exact same time. Like Mike commits, and then he commits as a result of him. So I don't know. I think they maybe could have squeezed him in there. That being said, as someone who doesn't know the Von Erich story, when I watched the movie, I was just like, oh, it's good. You know, obviously that didn't affect my experience at all. And like I said, we're really needing to cut for time because this movie, we're jumping around a lot, you know. There's at a certain point where you're just kind of skipping times to get to the next depressing moment when maybe we could have breathed a bit more, and, you know, Chris would really muddle that. I think we should revisit the dad character in this movie because he's kind of complex, I would say. Like, he's definitely the bad guy of the film, but he's also, in a way, not the bad guy. You can tell he just has this, like, messed up philosophy, and he's not quite sure how to handle these emotions that the boys are going through. Like, I do believe that in some ways he does want the best for them, but like he just doesn't know that like talking about these emotions that they're going through and getting them away from wrestling will actually do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I feel like he's definitely the bad guy, but when he's talking about like his son's funeral and he's not wanting any of them to cry and he's like more focused on wrestling, I looked at it in a different way where I'm like, okay, this is how he copes. Like clearly he is so distraught. I mean, you didn't really seem that distraught, but I mean, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, the way he copes with the death of his son is just focusing on what legacy he has with his sons left. Even though, you know, he's very like strict, you know, like, don't cry even though your brother just died. And then like they keep dying and it just keeps all falling apart on him. Right. And I mean, clearly, like, I think a lot of this is just rooted from like, you know, his deep insecurity and his need to be the best and his need to be shown and be manly. But, you know, I think if he started if they learned to confront their emotions and integrate them, that's even more masculine.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If they would cry in front of each other.
Yeah, which they rarely did. But let's talk about other traditional masculine things in this movie. Everyone is jacked. Everyone is insanely jacked.
Right.
And they're, like, particularly when you're looking at Zach. I know he said for, like, Baywatch, when he got in shape for that, he's like, I'm never doing anything like that again.
He's way bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how many pounds they put on?
They said they put on 40 pounds of muscle.
Each of them?
I know Jeremy Allen White said he put on 40.
I know Mike didn't.
Yeah, no, he definitely didn't. But they definitely said they ate a lot of chicken, broccoli, and rice for this, which I think is code for they probably weren't natty in this.
Really? You think so?
I don't think so.
They don't look natty.
No. No. All that aside.
They look like wrestlers, though.
Yeah, I mean, the choreography was fun. I mean, the actual wrestling scenes when you see, like, the brothers bonding together. Right. And, like, there's this one particular shot where, like, all three of them get in the ring and they're all each fighting a guy and they, like, do the same moves combo. It was fun.
Yeah, that's one thing we should talk about is the wrestling in this movie. It's funny. This movie is about wrestling, which is a known thing that is, like, everyone agrees it's fake. Everyone gets that, and it's all about just, like, buying into, you know, the performance or whatever. And it's funny you watch this movie, and it's so real. You're given, like, such real backstories for these characters that when you end up watching a lot of the wrestling scenes, I'm, like, rooting for them like it's a boxing match.
Yeah, like it's real wrestling.
Yeah, like it's intense when he's like grabbing Ric Flair. I loved Ric Flair in this. Yeah. I don't know. Did you know anything about him beforehand?
Like in real life?
Yeah.
I mean, I know he like exposed himself to like some flight attendants on a plane.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, not a cool dude.
Not a cool dude at all. Pretty funny though. He just seems like this absolute menace. It makes me like, kind of makes me want to go back and watch wrestling. Like I want to see the Von Erichs actually wrestle.
Yeah, I watched the actual fight with him and Ric Flair, and it's clear that they definitely like upped a lot of the drama for the movie than like what the actual fight was. But no, I mean it's great seeing again how these, especially like in that scene, Kevin is really dealing with the death of, I think, it was one of the brothers. One of the many tragedies that befallen them in the movie. Yeah. And that was his way of coping, was just like squeezing this dude's head.
Yeah, until he's like bleeding afterwards. It's funny that he didn't care either. He has this bloody head afterwards. He comes in and he's like, we should do this again.
Yeah, you're champ.
And it's so funny too because Von Erichs are sitting there and it's like, you don't even know they're dealing with the realest fucking, you don't know how important this boy is, man.
Yeah. We've been raving and hyping on this movie, Braden. You have any issues with it?
I think I do. I have a few little things that just kind of bug me. We talked about the Chris thing already, which isn't a big issue for me because it does streamline the movie, but that does bug me a bit. I want to talk about the dad and just a few lines he has. I don't know if you had the same problem as me. There's like a few lines in this movie where he's just like a little too direct. I feel like they could have like workshopped these lines. It's like, I know the dad's supposed to be sort of like masculine and militaristic almost, where he's like very a straightforward, clear-cut man or whatever, right? But there's a few times where he's like talking to Kevin and he like, there's like specifically one at the beginning where he like sits him down and he's telling him like what the heavyweight champ means to him. And it's just like so blatant that he's just like giving the backstory, giving the exposition for the audience. He literally sits Kevin down and he's like, son, remember, this is important to me. I was a wrestler at this time, and I did this, and now this is important. We need this belt because that will satisfy me and my needs. That's about verbatim what he says in the movie. And he does that a couple times where they really just use the dad for like exposition dumping, and they almost like, it almost feels like the writers were like, he's emotionless, so we can just fucking let him say whatever. But it just came off a little unnatural and stilted. The dad actor is really good, so he kind of pulls it off and it like makes you almost not notice it. But that was a bit of a gripe I had with the movie.
Yeah.
Also, we jump around a lot. This isn't a gripe actually. This is just something I want to talk about. The editing was kind of funny in this movie. Not funny, but like very distinct choices. If anything, this is a pro. But if you want to get wasted during this movie, take a shot every time there's a cross dissolve. Because there is about 50 of them in this film.
Oh my gosh, do you remember the part when like all three of the brothers are in the locker room and they all like cross dissolve and their heads are merged? I freaking love that.
That shit was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's many of those in this movie. I was loving it though. I was loving it.
Yeah. I didn't really have any problems with that. My only kind of gripe was the love story I felt was kind of bland.
It was a little thin.
It was thin. It felt a little rushed, but I know that like if you spent more of the movie invested in that.
Yeah, you can't focus on the brothers as much.
Yeah, so I get that, and I think it would have been weird if they omitted it at all, but I definitely like wasn't super invested in the love story.
Well, it needs to be there for like the final scene, you know, to build up to like he needs to learn to have a family and build that and express himself to that. Oh my God, whatever. But like, yeah, I know what you're saying because the whole like she meets him and she's just like, you're hot.
Yeah.
And that's all we know that she likes about him. I guess there is sort of this like quirky charm to him where he doesn't know like how to express himself and she kind of like sees his pain. You only really get that for like the first scene with him though. And then after that, it's more sort of just them going back and forth.
Yeah. The thing that I did like about her though is that she kept like trying to remind him that like, hey, maybe this isn't a curse. Maybe it's just a stream of bad luck. Like maybe just like bad stuff happens to people and like that's life.
Right.
Definitely seems like a curse though. Like I don't know. Like first of all, just the upbringing they had was rough.
Right.
Given the like pressure from their father.
Yes. Immediate death.
Immediate death. David dies from getting pushed too hard in the ring. Kerry loses his foot.
Was David a suicide? Or was
No, it sounded like his stomach ruptured from.
Okay, but I wasn't sure if that was like a rupture from something he took or something.
No,
I didn't know if that was implied.
No, because he was like vomiting and stuff
Yeah,
earlier in the movie.
right.
I think it was just that he pushed himself too hard.
Okay.
And then you had Mike's coma and then suicide. You had Carrie losing his foot and then his suicide.
Yes. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's a lot of rough.
A lot of rough stuff.
Yeah. I like, too, that this movie doesn't just kind of list it off like a documentary, like factually. You actually feel the loss.
Yeah, they take time to like build up each of the boys individually and build up their like bond. So when they do go away, it's like, holy shit, you know.
Whose performances were your favorite?
I think my favorite was probably Mike's because he has to kind of play two roles in a way. He has to play himself as like, you know, the happy-go-lucky black sheep into music fun kid, and then he has to play after the coma where he's like disabled and he can't quite do all the things, and you're not sure like how much of him is still there. So I think his performance was really nuanced and probably my favorite. I would also say, you know, Jeremy Allen White was a standout. He was great. Charisma was off the charts. He got a lot of good screams from him in this movie, just like in The Bear, which I like him.
I mean, I think this might be Zac Efron's best role. Like, I haven't watched. I've only seen him really in High School Musical, but
you haven't
like
seen 17 again?
No, I haven't. But, but I feel like he's trying to like establish himself as more of a dramatic actor. You can tell he put in the work both physically.
This was his Oscar movie for sure.
And I love Jeremy Allen White. I love again that they were dedicated and put in the effort. I also just love the workout scenes in this movie when they're playing Tom Sawyer and they're just.
I was reminded of Pumping Iron.
Yeah, it's just fun to have like movies like that, and I feel like you don't see that super. I mean, you see it like in like a superhero movie when an actor does like a transformation.
Right.
But like it's kind of rare, I think, nowadays that like a mainstream movie is like a workout movie.
Yeah, bodybuilding type movie.
Yeah. So I mean, I enjoyed that aspect of it. I enjoyed their acting. It's great. They look goofy. They have the most ridiculous outfits. There's one part where Zach is wearing like a wife beater that's like yellow and mesh and like big white jeans.
Hell yeah.
And they have like the crazy long like weird bowl cut haircuts.
I love their outfits in the ring too.
Yeah.
Like when he's given the first interview, he's wearing this like red sort of jacket thing. It's all flashy.
All right, Braden, what do you give the Iron Claw?
I'm going to give Iron Claw, I think, a 4 out of 5. It's verging on that 4.5, honestly.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed it. It was one of the most emotional experiences I've had in a theater in a while. I cried about 3 times, and it was endearing. I loved it. I loved the movie. My only I know I didn't list too many flaws, but there's just something that I guess didn't connect with me. I guess there's something about it that just didn't connect with me enough to give it that 5-star. But that being said, like I have just continued to think about it over and over again since I've seen it. So I have to give it, at least a 4-star rating. It's really good.
I'm going to give Iron Claw a 4.5. Okay. When I first watched it, I gave it a 5 on my letterbox, mostly just for like enjoying the viewing experience. But now I've sat on it a little bit. Again, I feel like the love story part was a little more bland than it could have been. But as far as like investing, and also I don't like that they omitted a brother.
Yeah.
But investing in like the brotherly love and this family curse and having like this weird kind of, not exactly personal connection, but just knowing that like these were local people from Texas.
Right.
And I just thought that aspect of it was kind of cool. I enjoyed the actors in it. I enjoyed the acting. Great performances, great cinematography, a fun time at the theater.
Definitely.
Depressing time at the theater too.
Yes, not a fun time, honestly.
But I'm going to give it a 4.5. Had a great time with it.
Good movie.
Yeah.
Shall we bid this adieu?
The Iron Claw!
No!
I was going to peek, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The greatest family